So I was thinking about Cork and the comedy show I went to there. And I was talking with one of the performers beforehand because we got there a little bit earlier and he was like checking us in or whatever. And, we just got onto the topic of like, oh, what do you do? Da, da, da. And he was like a zoologist who is now doing comedy stuff. And, and then he's like, oh, what do you do? And I was like, oh, well, I'm a physicist and, doing stuff, whatever. But he really liked, the physicist thing. And he was like, oh, just to let you know, like, I'm making fun of physicists for my entire set. So, like, sorry in advance. And I was like, I mean, I'm not going to take that personally, but, like, what do you mean? And he said, well, in my experience, physicists have a really hard time talking to normal people. Like, they can't dumb something down to the point where a non-physicist understands. Whereas a chemist or a biologist or whatever can talk to normal everyday people. And he was like, yeah, and so part of what I do in my day job is translating what physicists say so that other scientists or laymen can understand. And I was thinking about that and I was like later I was thinking about it. I was like, is that true? Are physicists unique in not being able to explain things to a sufficient level? And I don't really know if it's true, but if it is, like, why is that? And then I was thinking about it and I was like, well, at least in the American education system, you generally have to take the first year of a lot of different courses, like as part of your general education requirements. So you have like chemistry 101 and biology 101 or whatever. At least in my experience, you don't have to take physics 101 unless you're going to be a physicist or sometimes engineers. And a lot of the engineers fail it a few times and then, give up on engineering or finally make it. But you often just have like a physical science requirement. And like in my school, a lot of people did geology for that because they were afraid of physics. And I was like, so is it really not the physicist's fault, but like the fault of the education system where physicists are assuming, just like other scientists, that their equivalent of like their first year education. So they're assuming that like what a particle is and what kinematics are and things that you learn as a freshman in university. And it's just nobody else learned that. Whereas, if the chemist is talking about like the periodic table, everybody had to learn that. But then it also goes deeper than that because in like middle school, high school, even sometimes elementary school, like the kiddos are learning science, right? They're learning biology, they're learning chemistry. Like the first time I saw a periodic table was definitely in elementary or middle school. It wasn't Chem 101 in university. But a lot of the time, you don't learn physics as a kid. Like not even basic physics. Best case scenario, you have some science guy come into your class and show you cool physics experiments, but chances are you don't actually really comprehend the physics behind it. You're just like, oh, cool, it exploded, you know? So maybe it's not the physicist's fault, but it's the education system, which, is a culprit for a lot of things. But then how do you fix that? Do you just start teaching physics at the lowest level you possibly can to the little kids and hope it takes a little bit? I'm sure that would help. I mean, physics is such a small community, which is great, right? Like it's nice to basically know everybody in it once you've been in it a few years. But it would also be nice if more people graduated and got physics degrees. But what would it take? Like why is there that gap in education? Why is physics regarded as this big scary thing when in reality it's just you haven't been exposed to it? Why haven't we been exposed to it? What is going on? Oh, I feel like, okay, this is also kind of random. Um, but I don't think I've actually explained this in a video yet. Maybe I have. I don't know. But I think I've mentioned in passing the housing crisis in Ireland, which is a thing, right? I didn't know it was a thing until I got here, which is kind of unfortunate. Now I know, before you plan to go somewhere and like live in hostels, see if they have a housing crisis. But I've talked to a few people about it. It's very well known here. Everybody's got their own opinions on it. But it was caused, perfect storm of a lot of things. COVID, of course, is one because that's influenced literally everything. But the students are like a really big factor. They are like a relatively unhoused population here, so they're very desperate. They don't have a lot of money, so they're staying in hostels long term, or they're in these like Airbnb situations. Like it's me and 3 other students in this house, and they're all here long term. Like they're here through till December. So, I mean, the fact that a lot of students can't get housing is why I'm having such an issue finding housing in the different places I'm going to, like finding hostel beds or cheap Airbnbs or anything. Part of it is because it's Ireland and it's part of the EU, and therefore like cheap housing doesn't really exist. Like even just $30-$40 a night for a bed in a dorm with 12 other people, that's what I'm considering cheap these days. And that's not cheap. That's kind of insane when you think about it. But I mean, it's me and every other student who's trying to do this, and so there are very few options. And especially if you want to be somewhere for more than a night or two, the chances that you'll get the same hostel that has availability for multiple days in a row is very minimal, which is why I've been doing this hostel hopping, because it's like the only option unless I want to stay in a hotel. So figured I would just explain that. So I feel like a lot of what I have on YouTube is like me talking about the weird situations of where I'm living for the moment and like kind of complaining about them, right? And to be fair, that is the nature of the game when you're staying in like the cheapest possible places, right? I've just been lucky in that they've all been safe so far. And I'm constantly confused. I'm like, are my expectations too high? Like, if I'm paying $30 a night for something, is it too much to expect toilet paper? I don't know. I didn't think it was. But when I checked in here, they were showing me around. There was no toilet paper in the bathroom, and the host was like, "Oh, I'll go get some toilet paper." And she did, but it was a very small roll. It was like 2/3 gone. So she gave us a third of a roll of toilet paper for the one bathroom that the 4 students share, right? And I was like, oh, okay, maybe that's all they had at the moment. Like they'll give us another roll at some point. But that was 2 days ago. And it's since run out, obviously. And so I texted the Airbnb host and I was like, hey, like we're out of toilet paper, where can I get more, right? Like, is it under a cupboard or something? There's no cupboards in the bathroom. And I didn't want to like snoop throughout their whole house, And she responded and she's like, I'll get more when I come home in 2 hours. And I was like, what if I've been texting you that from the bathroom? Like, what if I needed it now? But also, somebody else finished the toilet paper a few hours ago. They didn't feel the need to replace it. Like, the other 3 students are here long term. I feel like it should not be my responsibility, the newcomer, to be figuring out our toilet paper situation. Like, these people have been here for a while. Like, surely they know where the toilet paper is stored or comes from or whatever. Like, I'm like, and I know they're home because one of them had his door open, and then I like walked by and I was like, hi, and he closed the door. It's very odd, very unfriendly, and very, like, that's very not Irish. Like, I was very confused. But I'm like, so the host doesn't expect us to use toilet paper, right? You get a third of a roll for 4 people for 2 days. And then the students just finish it and don't worry about it? Like, what are you doing? I'm just so confused. Like, to me, this is odd. To me, that's not enough toilet paper. And I feel like there should be a backup roll, accessible or whatever. And then if somebody asks for toilet paper, wouldn't you just tell them where some was? Not be like, oh, I'll replace it in 2 hours? Like, what if I had to go to the bathroom between now and 2 hours? In fact, I did. And you know what I did? I found this little pack of tissues, like a travel pack, under the bed, covered in dust. And I was like, well, guess that's what I'm using. I'm just so confused. I mean, first of all, it's interesting that this person was willing to just kind of like hire me, but not hire me, but sort of hire me without knowing any of my background. Like, I told her that I worked with Shima, but I didn't know anything about Stoll, but that they were similar programs, based on what she was showing me. But like, she hasn't, like, she doesn't know if I have degrees in this, how long I've been doing this, what I've done, like, nothing. And she's willing to be like, yeah, sure, come for a week, which is kind of cool. I kind of love that. I'm trying to decide if a 2 hour commute is prohibitive because it would be really nice to not have to pay for housing. I don't really know how serious Brendan was about like you can just stay in my house because he's on vacation. So it probably wouldn't be that bad to have like a house sitter, but like he doesn't know me that well. We have known each other. Sorry, I have my tea. We've known each other since Sunday, and it's now Saturday, so it's been almost a week. But we've been to two knitting groups and now a woolen mill together. So I'm like, I mean, I've trusted him enough to let him drive me places, which is like a big no-no if you think you're gonna get murdered. I guess maybe he trusts me enough to stay in his house. But I'm like, 2 hour commute. That's what I did from Ennis to Limerick, and I was doing that most every day. Although there were a couple days when I was super hella sick. Only one of which I did not go to Limerick. Like, yeah, that's 4 hours out of my day. 4 hours plus 9 hours of work day. That's 13 hours. Like, I still have another 11 to live my life. So